Hi guys, welcome to Westminster Uncensored. I'm Michael Heaver.
I'm Patrick Christie's.
And so much to talk about on today's show, including Viktor Orban's victory in Hungary. We'll also be looking at the housing crisis and the impact mass migration is having, and the government's approach to law and order. Certainly nowhere near tough enough for us here at Westminster. But as ever guys, dive in, comment below, tell us what you think, get involved. And Patrick, we start with this, a real admission from the government, from the Housing Minister, Dominic Raab.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, kind of like most things, really, it seems like Westminster's been ahead of the curve slightly.
Oh, of course.
When it comes to the mainstream media, we've been reporting for a little while various reports that have come out, high credibility reports that have come out with regards to the impact of mass migration on the housing crisis. Now we've had a Housing Minister, Dominic Raab, as many of you will know, I'm sure who he is, has come out and actually just said, based on the ONS data, the advice to me from the department is that in the last 25 years, we have seen immigration put house prices up by something like 20%. So that's obviously a huge figure, especially for anybody who's looking to get on the housing ladder, anybody maybe of around my age, especially is finding that incredibly difficult to do around the London area. Well, now if you consider the fact that the mass migration has increased the property market by about 20%, increased the house price market, I should say, by about 20%. That's obviously had quite a considerable impact. There are other reports that we've also done on things like Migration Watch's study onto the actual impact that mass migration's had on the availability of housing, availability of stock. But as ever here at Westminster, we want your views. We want this to be an interactive show. So let us know what you think about this particular issue. Have you noticed the difference? Do you think it's gone the other way? Let us know.
Yeah, I mean, guys, for a long time now, we've heard we've had radio silence, haven't we? Almost.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of you guys have said, look, that the housing crisis is a population crisis. We know, and again, we've covered this at Westminster extensively, that the last set of figures, the UK population annual increase was 538,000, the highest for 70 years. How can that not have an impact on your housing stock? And we hear so much from people like Theresa May talking about the supply side, how we can build more houses. What they very rarely talk about is the demand, what's fueling the demand. Look, it ain't rocket science, is it? The ONS figures show that, as I said, 70-year high, 538,000 annual population increase, 62% of which is due to net migration. We've seen, obviously, net migration in the hundreds of thousands now, despite the government saying they'd get down to tens of thousands. And I think this is really, from Dominic Raab, and fair play, he's identified what's going on here. The quote, based on the ONS data, the advice to me from the department is that in the last 25 years, we have seen immigration put house prices up by something like 20%. So when you see young people say, look, I have no prospect of owning a house, I can't afford it, it seems to me for a long time this issue's been buried, hasn't it? It's been totally buried. The fact that you've got your population going up by so much, so quickly, driven by mass migration, there's a huge factor when you look at Britain's housing crisis.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because we've had a comment here just from Christine Killick saying the South East you need £35. Obviously, so it's a bit, you're joking a bit there, I'm sure, but that does raise an interesting point actually, because all right, okay, so maybe housing stock has been reduced, maybe the pricing of it has gone up, fine, but maybe that is directly linked to mass migration. It would appear so because the government's now saying it, and of course there's various reports saying it. But is that actually just in areas where most people want to live? Is it just maybe a London thing? I wonder whether or not this is going on across the UK, because in some of the slightly less desirable places to live around the country, maybe there's less of an impact, I suppose, because less migrants are coming. So I don't know. What do you think?
We've got Tony on Facebook here saying, I don't think he's identified it. It was obvious. What he has done is admitted to it. Well, I think that's fair play. I mean, look, we for a long time have identified this as a massive issue. I mean, the population increase, as I said, guys, and for those of you just joining, 70-year high, 538,000 annual population increase. That's had a huge impact on the demand for housing, and it's been buried for far too long. And I hope now that this has been admitted by the Housing Minister, we're actually going to get in the process of doing something, because it seems to me, time and time again, the politicians are sort of playing catch-up with what the public know, and in terms of actual policy being put forward, it's very little. I mean, well, that's fine to say that mass migration has had this impact, it's pushed up housing prices. What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? Because it seems to me at the moment the government plan is for 2021 is when you're going to see potential border policy change. That isn't really good enough. And okay, fine, if you are talking about 2021, what's the plan? What is the plan to bring down that migration to tens of thousands? How are they going to do it, and when is it going to be done?
Mark Taylor's got in touch saying it's not just housing. What about school places, etc.? Well, we actually did a report on this going back a little while ago now. But it's just a report on the population surge and the impact that that was having on British infrastructure. Now, I just want to make one thing very clear with regards to when I'm personally talking about mass migration, things like that, it's got nothing to do with any racial element or cultural element to it. It's purely it's a numbers game, really. And the numbers,
supply and demand, isn't it?
Yeah, and the impact that that can have on Britain's infrastructure as a whole. So to answer that question there, Mark, we've seen here that basically in A&E, in accident emergency, in 2006, 97% of hospital patients were seen by a medic within 4 hours. But now that's down to 81.4%. I actually believe since I wrote this, that's got even worse. The number of pupils being taught in classes containing 36 children or more has trebled in the last 5 years. That's classes of 36 or more in the last 5 years. There's a lot. So yeah, you are right. That's an interesting point that you make. This population surge is not just having an impact on the housing crisis, it's kind of infrastructure as a whole, really.
Guys, if you're enjoying the show, as ever, just to remind you, Uncensored, Westminster Uncensored, it's 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. UK time on Monday, Wednesday and Friday. So do join us. And if you enjoy, do give us a retweet, do give us a like. It helps spread the word. And of course, go to westmonster.com/support. So much we want to get through, but yeah, let's go to some comments.
Great comment here from Peter Watson. Why is it that most people in the UK can see that uncontrolled mass migration is causing problems in the UK apart from politicians? Well, I think, let's be honest about it, I think this is why people get so angry about it. I could actually understand the fact that maybe nothing was being done or precious little was being done if I actually just thought that the politicians were, too thick to understand what the reality of the situation was, because there's something kind of strangely endearing about stupidity, isn't there? But you can't really argue that they don't understand the problem and that they know that there is a problem, and they are therefore just choosing not to do anything about it, aren't they? And that's pretty unforgivable.
Lovely comment from Sandra here saying the only honest news we get now. Well, thank you very much for your support. Alison as well with another comment saying the historic market town I live in and all the small villages around it are having thousands and thousands of houses being built. Communities are being wrecked. It is unsustainable and unfair. Once our countryside is gone, it is gone forever. Look, I know right around the country, from speaking to friends, speaking to family, there's mass building going on now, places like Essex and elsewhere, that, local authorities are having to put it upon them now that there need to be huge developments, which, the thing is, when you talk about housing, guys, you're talking about an increase in population. What never seems to go hand in hand is, well, how many more hospitals you're going to build with it? How many more roads? Yeah. How many more school places? Because it seems to me the current policy seems to be, well, let's build a shed load of houses and just add more and more people to finite resources. So, I don't see a mass hospital expansion. I don't see tons of schools being built. Well, indeed, what we've seen, I think one of the statistics that came out recently was that I think it was a quadrupling in the number of children, I think in primary school or secondary school, I can't remember, but a trebling in the number that are in class sizes of 30 plus. So class sizes are ballooning. We know that A&E waiting times are going up. This is damaging people's quality of life. And so when you're having this debate about population increase, about housing, about all of these things, it's about looking at, through the prism of quality of life, of planning, and of course what Brexit does give us the opportunity to do at least is to actually plan for the future. So that's why we need the government to take back control of our borders and go about a sustainable, sensible level of migration as soon as possible.
I refuse to believe that there are just hordes of British people out there, and hundreds of thousands of them, that are against mass migration or uncontrolled mass migration because they're racist or because they don't like the colour of somebody's skin or the language that they may speak or whatever their cultural history is. No, I think the reality is that there are a lot of people out there that have got really big concerns about mass migration and controls on it because they are watching the quality of their life and the quality of their public resources be diminished. If it is all of a sudden, if your local schools all seem to become more overstretched, if your police force is more overstretched, if every element of your infrastructure seems, then you are, of course, going to have views about maybe let's try and reduce the mass immigration in order to make that more comfortable, I suppose.
We've got CJ Jack on Twitter saying doctors can't cope. Here they are. There's huge things going on in terms of that professionalism as well. I think we've seen a lot of doctors talk about leaving and going private and things like that because their workloads are increasing. We've got Spike here with a very kind comment on Twitter. Thank you very much for your comment, Spike, saying you guys seem to get the news before the mainstream media. Well, look, this is something that we focus on the things that we think are important to you in your day-to-day lives, not in the bubble, not these ridiculous conspiracy theories that you see sometimes on the news now. This is about people's lives. It's about the quality of their lives. It's about what sort of country are we going to have in the future. And I'm very proud, actually, with Westminster, guys. If you're a regular viewer, you'll know this, that we covered the bloodbath, the unfolding epidemic of violence in our country way before a lot of the mainstream media jumped on the bandwagon and now, thankfully, giving it the coverage it deserves. And that's our next story. Amber Rudd, the Home Secretary, Patrick, talking about talking about apparently no correlation between police numbers and crime.
Yeah, Amber Rudd's done this quite bizarre press conference earlier where, essentially Britain, I think, was hoping that she'd stand up and just say, look, here are some very obvious facts. A, the spiralling violent knife crime, and B, we're going to increase police resources. But instead, Amber Rudd stood up and disagreed with the fact that fewer police meant more knife crime or more violent crime, and then she proceeded to tell us that actually sometimes drug dealers weren't very nice people, and then the live feed cut out. So I think we can regard that as a resounding success.
But Reporters leaked, hasn't it, Patrick?
Yeah.
Basically, what's happened is Reporters leaked, and you can go see this on mysponsor.com.
Yeah.
That's basically said there is a correlation. Is that right?
Well, that's it, and that's why that was so perplexing, because actually what a report from within her own department has come out and said that since 2012 to 13, weighted crime demand on the police has risen, largely due to the growth in recorded sex offences. It then goes on to say that basically, look, it outlines that crime, at the same time, officers' numbers have fallen by 5%. So basically, clearly here, crime is rising.
Well, there you go. We've got the statistics there on the screen, Patrick. He's run by what they show.
Yeah, so in 2009, so it's basically in 2010 it was minus 2,503 police officers compared to the year before. Then in 2011 we lost 6,000 more.
And if we go a bit further down in that story, Patrick, that's it, yeah.
So you can
police
basically
officer
see
numbers in England,
since
Wales.
in September 2009, there were 144,353 police officers. As of September 2017, there are 121,929. That's obviously a monumental drop. At the same time, as I've just said, crime rates have gone up by around 5%. I mean, it's not rocket science, is it, you would have thought? That, look, if you do have more of a physical deterrent on the streets, if you do have more police officers, and the resources for those police officers to then go and investigate crimes, then presumably crime rate is going to drop. I mean, I think that's reasonable to suggest that that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, look, guys, it's very simple, isn't it? Law and order, we're going to go to a few of your comments in a minute. Let us know what you think about what's going on. But the numbers speak for themselves. The police numbers have gone down. And my bigger worry as a whole on this, and there seems to be very little talk about actually being tough on law and order. I'm just going to bring up another story. Now, this is what the Home Office are proposing, guys. And I think this is not only stupid, I think it sends out an incredibly weak message. So if we bring it up there, right, what basically the government is saying here, one of the things they're saying is that there'll be a two strikes rule for repeat acid possession resulting in custodial sentences.
Crackers,
right? And now what they actually say is the legislation will include a minimum custodial sentence for those convicted of a second or subsequent offence of possession of a corrosive substance in a public place. So let me just break this down exactly what this means. The message this sends out is that you can go out with acid, and if it's your first time, if you ain't been caught, if you get caught by police, if you get stopped and searched, if you get found out, whatever, you probably ain't going to jail. You have to be found a second time before you're really guaranteed a minimum custodial sentence. As I understand it, that minimum custodial sentence will be 6 months, which is pretty pathetic. Even if it's 12 months, I think that's very weak. What I would propose, guys, is this. You put a big stop and search in these danger areas in London and elsewhere if you need to. You say to anyone from this day, if you're caught with, don't matter what it is, whether it's a gun, whether it's a knife, whether it's acid, you are getting a 3 to 5 year stretch in prison, right?
Yeah.
On the basis that if you're carrying acid, your intention surely is to permanently disfigure someone. You see the victims of this crime, guys. This is a life sentence for them. You've seen people's lives changed forever because they've had one of these morons throw acid at them. And yet our message seems to be, well, if you get caught twice, you'll definitely go to prison. I mean, that's giving carte blanche for someone to run around with the first time thinking, well, I'm all right, ain't I?
Well, I think there's a very obvious thing here. If you'd have asked like a hardened criminal, like let's say 10 or 15 years ago, who was going out carrying a knife or carrying a gun or, acid or something, if you'd just stopped them in the street and just gone, look, if you were caught, would you expect to go to prison for that possession charge? They'd probably say, well, yeah, realistically. Fine. Now, these people that are walking around, a lot of them kids really, walking around with knives and guns and acid, if you stopped them now and said to them, sorry, even if you got caught by a police officer, would you expect to go to prison? They'd say no, because they wouldn't. And that's obviously a risk on the streets, isn't it? There just seems like a glaring oversight there, like glaring error. And I had a brilliant comment here from someone come in and just say, my council tax has gone up every year, but police budgets have gone down and down. And you're absolutely right. I think it's from Sean Wilson, that was it. Because I actually had a situation, I had to stop myself writing a very, very angry letter to the council. I nearly did something that Victor Meldrew would normally do. And my roads just hadn't been gritted in the run-up to the whole Christmas thing. Yeah. So I just thought, why council tax has gone up 6%? Why isn't this, why isn't more being done about this? But it's true though, isn't it? Every single year we're asked to pay more and more and more into coffers, into government coffers. Well, why are we in this situation where everything just seems to be constantly being reduced? I found that very odd.
At the end of the day, look guys, as I say, for this new proposal to be 2 strikes, to me it sends out a horrific message. It should be a 1-strike rule. There ain't no reason for you to be running around the streets of acid unless you intend to permanently disfigure someone. That's a life sentence for them. Absolutely. You're a scumbag. You should be made to pay. What you shouldn't get is a little slap on the wrist. Oh, it's all right, little Johnny. Maybe we'll put you in prison next time if you get caught carrying acid twice. It's a joke. Yeah. It's a joke, and it sends out, particularly to hardened criminals, very violent people who are used to gang shootings, gang stabbings, threatening people with acid. It sends out a pathetic message, I'm afraid, that we're not taking this seriously enough. They should be thrown away. They should be getting multiple years in prison for carrying acid. Well,
and the people seem to agree with you. No ifs, no buts, prison. That's Shane Turner. And we've had quite a few of these.
It doesn't mean me put in prison.
That's only a matter of time, surely. No, Soft Touch UK, that's from Hazel Trainer. And yeah, loads of things. Spot on, lads, that's from Valerie Burke. So yeah, cheers for getting in touch, guys. Please keep your comments coming in.
If you're enjoying this, do give us a retweet, do give us a like. We're going to go to a break in a minute. When we come back, you're going to see another story that I think is going to infuriate you. A prison population, the lowest it's been since January 2011. We'll see you back in a minute. The odds were stacked in the favour of Remain. The money was stacked in the favour of Remain. The government, Whitehall, much of these big corporate interests, all backing Remain. It was a major upset victory for Leave to One.
But you are going to solve absolutely nothing if you completely ignore the other factor as well. And that is the fact, obviously at the minute, that mass migration is having a huge impact.
14-year-old shot in Seven Sisters and left with life-changing injuries. Is this not a national emergency?
People, presumably a lot of them, would have to be watched, because although they say they're not a national security threat, you would imagine that in fact probably they are. Now that is a massive drain on our resource. Do you have any idea how many people it takes to watch someone 24/7? Right guys, so yes, hope you had a chance to enjoy that little video there, and please do check out westminster.com/support, and yeah, thank you very much if you do. Now yes, the story that Michael alluded to earlier there, which might get you a bit hot under the collar, is the number of criminals in prison is the lowest since 2011. But this might seem a bit odd, might it? Because we often do hear about, oh, prisons are too full for a start, and so we can't send people to prison, so we're giving them a slap on the wrist. Gun crime's up 21%, robbery's up 29%, recorded rape is up 29% as well. Obviously, as we know, Britain's population is the largest it's ever been. So what is really going on here? Why are Britain's prisons in such an empty state as the emptiest they've been since 2011? It just seems a bit odd. That does imply, wouldn't it, that loads of people are going unpunished? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it's bizarre, isn't it? As Patrick says, you've got a couple of things happening here. You've got violent crime up across the board. You've got a huge population increase, and yet you've got less prisoners banged up since January 2011. Now, I mean, doesn't that tell you something? That if you have, number one, we're becoming softer as a society, I think. It's harder to get put in prison. I mean, I always refer to this one. We did a story last year, 16-year-old, East London school, acid attack against 2 girls at an East London school. They were left with sort of mental torture afterwards, really traumatised by it. He didn't even get a custodial sentence. And you've got garbage like this of, the amount of prisoners going down while the population's going, and why you're seeing violent crime on the increase. I mean, doesn't this shout out, actually, this is the problem? This is the problem. We've gone too weak on law and order. Far too weak.
We've wandered into a situation, haven't we, whereby the prison system's pretty knackered. We're actually replacing some prison guards with actually just security guards, really, glorified G4S security guards, who have no vested interest in really protecting the prisons or doing an overly good job there, because they're especially doing it for pretty poor wages. So you end up with a situation where you're actually in prison and things are out of control. They're completely mental. And now we have a situation where, despite all this surge in violent crime right across the board, where's the deterrent here for people if they know they're not going to get sent to jail?
And Tone on Facebook, guys, do keep your comments rolling in on what we're saying. Let us know what you think. Tone saying the prison system's broke either way. There is no punishment. It's a holiday and an idea hub. The thing that gets me, guys, is the amount of times now. Have you seen the amount of videos of lads in prison basically jumping around to music or TV in the background or McDonald's or wherever it is?
Doing drugs also.
Just doing drugs. That's just taking the absolute piss. I mean, that, I agree. If you send people away for six months, a year in these glorified holiday camps, then you're not going to get the desired result. I mean, people have got phones in there, recording themselves and pump it out on the internet. I mean, again, you cannot do law and order on the cheap.
No.
You have to properly resource the prison service and the police if you're going to have an effective deterrent to bring down violent crime. Is it not obvious, guys? Am I missing something? Let me know if I am.
Well, no, it doesn't seem so, I suppose. John Bradman's got in touch saying zero tolerance to petty crime and vandalism needs to return. It's an interesting point, that, John, because we talk a lot about the serious crimes here, of course. We've just mentioned, for example, the murder and rape statistics, things like that. But yeah, maybe that is where it starts. Maybe that's where it starts, because if you have a change your attitude to things that are going on right at the bottom end of the crime spectrum, I suppose maybe you could say that it would have a knock-on effect, wouldn't it, and work upwards from that.
Now, a really interesting comment here from Shane, and guys, we really enjoy your comments. That's why we love them so much, because we want this to be interactive. We want to hear from you what you think about this, because really interesting comment here. Shane saying far too weak, mate, in regards to prison, saying, can I just add, I'm an ex-con, trust me, I know. So there you go.
He's just got another one saying 15 years clean record, by the way. Well done, Shane,
well
turning
done.
your life round.
Yeah, nice one. You weren't in last week then, Shane. But there you go. There's someone telling us he's been inside and it's become far too weak. And I think when you see these videos of these lads jumping around and having a ball, it sends out a very strong message. Are we just turning these into places where you go in a criminal, you meet other criminals, you come out, there's no punishment, there's no fear of going back inside, there's no real trajectory that's leading people away from a life of crime.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's it. And I'm just thinking, really, if we are a soft touch in terms of not just the way that we're handling crime on the streets, but then the sentences we are dishing out, i.e. maybe not enough people are being sent to prison, they're certainly not being sent there for long enough. And then when we are in prison, the actual prison itself isn't great. I mean, the whole thing's a bit of a potent cocktail of disaster, isn't it, really, in that sense?
It's all linked. It's all linked.
Of course, we want to see what you guys think, so please do get going. Hazel Training's just saying prisons aren't fit for purpose. I know ex-cons that enjoyed going there. 3 meals a day and getting educated. Now, I'm going to sort of, when some people do call prisons a holiday camp, I make no illusions, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't like to be in one, right? But I still think they're probably not as bad or not as hard as they should be in some respects.
Guys, we're going to go to the next story now. I mean, this speaking of soft touch, this one really does take the biscuit. Now, you may have seen the images of when those so-called child refugees were coming into the country, and of course, the great British public kicked off about it and said, look, this is a joke. I mean, some of these guys could look like they could be granddads, quite frankly. And there they are walking in the front door, supposedly as child refugees. Well, look, the facts back up that scrutiny. We basically got a situation here, and as ever, guys, do go and visit westmonster.com, by the way. We can see all of these stories and read about them in full. But yeah, basically, in the year ending June 2017, there were 2,952 so-called unaccompanied child refugees came to Britain. That's in the year ending June 2017. So about 3,000 in 12 months. Of those, 705 were questioned over suspicions regarding their age, right? So they obviously looked a bit, they had a bit of a beard or a bit of a...
They just looked like fully grown men.
Fully grown men. And then of the 705 that were questioned, 65% of those cases, you'll never guess what? They were found to be adults.
Right, yeah.
So there you are, yet again, it's the British border policy. People come, they lie, they take the absolute piss. Will any of these people that have lied to get into the country and come in on false pretences be deported? Will there be any action taken? I sadly very much doubt it. We'll wait and see.
This is what really, really gets me, especially in light of what we've seen recently in Syria, for example. So I'm sure everyone will be aware of these horrible alleged gas attacks, or nerve agent attacks, whatever you want to call them, that have taken place in Syria in the last couple of days, and apparently they've taken place there before as well. Now, are you telling me that there is a shortage of actual children in need here? Is there a shortage of actual child refugees, children, genuine children, babies, toddlers, that need rescuing from these situations, that need a safe place to come and live their lives free from the fear of war and famine and all this? No, of course there's not a shortage of those things. So why on earth are we in a situation where, as British society, we can go, oh, it's okay, we've actually done our bit, we've let in X amount of child migrants. Well, you've not, because 65% of those are fully grown men.
Of the ones that were asked.
Of the ones that were asked, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not good enough, is it? That's ridiculous. And when people like myself often get criticised for going, oh, well, actually, you just don't want any asylum seekers. No, it's not that. I just want the right ones. I want the ones that are currently locked up in some Syrian hellhole, getting blasted from Bashar al-Assad every day with some kind of nerve agent. Give them a place to stay. They can stay. One of them could stay around my house. And I'm not doing a Lily Allen here. I'm actually being genuine. They could, actually, but not one of these fully grown men that we've seen wandering back in. And then, of course, you get accused of, oh, well, you must be racist if you say that man looks like a man.
Yeah,
no, I'm sorry, it's mental.
Richard agreeing with you on Facebook here, saying help real people, kids, not the crooks.
Yeah, there's no shortage of children out there in the world that need help from people like Britain, from the British society. These people they just weren't children, were they? So can we get that straight? You know, there's different rules that apply there, I'm afraid, if you're not a child. And I don't really blame these guys for trying it on at all. I'm absolutely certain I'd probably do a very similar thing if I was their shoes. I think it's absolutely shameful from the British government that you would enter into this kind of policy, but then also try and defend it. You know, just help the real people. Don't be so lazy as to just take whoever you want seriously. Have a look into it and get into the weeds of this and help the abundance of very needy children out there.
Sad here. I mean, Sally sums it up. Those full-grown men stole a place from a child who really needed it, and the UK government let them. And I'm afraid that is the situation.
Yeah.
And you know, as I say, I'm very pessimistic about what action will actually be done about these blaggers who lied to come into the country. Obviously, as you say, you know, that place could have gone to a genuine child, you know, abandoned, that really is in need, and yet you saw the TV pictures for yourself, didn't you guys? I mean, you saw what some of these people are. They're just taking absolute piss, and it's just the weakness of the border system we've got in this country allows people to just to blag their way in, and they know it as well, and that's why some people want to come.
But I just think you might as well not have any policy on child refugees whatsoever if you're not going to bother to ensure that the people that you're helping with that policy are in fact child refugees. What's the point? And we all know they're all out there. We all watch Children in Need. We all watch everything. It's not as if you couldn't pinpoint several countries. Now, anyone could pinpoint several countries in the world on a map that you can guarantee there will be an abundance of child refugees there in desperate need. Why on earth have we not gone to them and helped them out? Why are we content to just massage the figures and go, oh no, well look, we've let this amount in. Yeah, but they're not child refugees, are they, a lot of these people?
Pretty desperate stuff, guys. As I say, if you're enjoying the show, please do give us a retweet. Please do give us a like, and please do visit westmonster.com/support if you want to help us, if you want to back us. We need your support. Support pro-Brexit media as we take on the EU establishment there. You can see it on the screen, westmonster.com/support. Head there over the show and help us out. Now, we're just going to go to, turning our attention now a bit to Brexit.
You know, we didn't think we were going to let you off without a bit of Brexit.
Of course not. The British fishermen are not going down without a fight. And we've seen, you know, during the referendum, they were willing to fight for their industry. It's been decimated by European Union policy, and they're basically fishing for leave station. More protests at the weekend. There was a boat there. Was it Theresa May, EU 2019?
Yeah.
You know, the guys. The thing is, the British fishermen's point is very simple. It's very fundamental in that they contend, and they are right to say, that the current policy, effectively, with this transition deal being cooked up between the government and the European Union, is going to basically mean that the fisheries policy as it is continues until 2021. And what they're saying is, well, that's fine. The government is saying that we're going to take back control of our waters maybe in 2021. There ain't going to be that many of us left by then. They cannot sustain themselves. They cannot survive under the current policy. They back Brexit. They campaign for leave to see change brought in. And now they're told, oh, no, just a few more years, a few more years, a few more years, a few more years. And they start to wonder, are we being abandoned? Are we being decimated forever? Is there going to be any serious British fishing industry left to revive? These are, you know, you've got to remember, some of these are generations. These companies go, these companies and boats, etc. And it's a real tragedy, and you can see the anger of what's happening to them.
Yeah.
In fact, and Nigel Farage was down there. We're going to play a little video in a minute, and you can just have a watch of what was going down around the country yesterday.
Fishing protests all around the country. We're in Whitstable now, but it's been in Newcastle, it's been in Milford Haven, it's been in Plymouth, Hastings, you name it. And you know, the fact is, Brexit was about taking back our sovereignty, which means our territorial borders. And the government are saying, for the transition period, we're going to stay part of the CFP. That's a disaster for the commercial fishing industry, for the angling industry, and I wonder, in a harbour like this, another 2 years of EU rules in business, so the time to protest is now. It's not good enough, it's not honouring, what people actually voted for. But isn't it funny? This industry was sold out on the way into Europe and it's being betrayed on the way out as well. Here in Whitstable, ahead of the boat burning, it's all kicking off. One of the fishermen I would describe as being over-enthusiastic has sprayed the pro-EU supporters with Thames estuary water. I, of course, couldn't possibly approve of such a thing.
Well done, mate. Guys, keep up the work.
Well, what better symbol, not only of what's happened to the fishing industry ever since 1973, but actually the dangers of a transition period. They're saying 21 months. I don't believe them. Brexit means Brexit. It means sovereignty. It means taking back our waters. And frankly, what's happening to our commercial industry and our angling industry is a tragedy. I hope Mrs May is watching, because that is what transition is doing to...
Right, guys, so there you have it. That's what transition is doing to Britain, apparently. So we've had a lot of your comments coming in. Tony Roffey saying we've been sold out big time. Loads more coming up here. I've got, say, I live on the coast and we'll be happy to learn to fish at sea, but there's not much point in the minute because we're going to get sold out. They've protected the bankers. As usual, they'll sell out the rest of the country. So loads of these comments coming in. And Tanis, who's a regular on the show, just saying, lol, love it, Nigel. So there's obviously a lot of that. And Alison Stubbs, fiery as ever, saying every EU rag should be burnt. So interesting. A range of views there from our lovely Westmonsters.
As ever, guys, you'll be able to catch all the latest on Brexit at westmonster.com.
Yeah.
Just another story we're going to go into now. Guys, when I talk about the Ramonas having lost the plot, does this, Tony Blair, I don't know what, I think he's just completely lost it. This story now basically wants Germany and Angela Merkel to help stop Brexit. The quotes, extraordinary quotes. Blair saying Germany should do everything possible to keep the UK in the EU. The most important thing is to keep the door open if the British decide to reverse their decision by voting on the outcome of the negotiations. Germany can also help to promote a British return to the EU by showing that the EU can change itself. It gets to the point, guys, doesn't it, where it starts to get beyond delusional. Does Tony Blair really think that the British people are going to be basically persuaded by the Germans to stay in the European Union? Is he that? Are these guys just living in a different reality?
It's a bit crazy, isn't it? Tony Blair's now developed this kind of 1,000-yard glassy-eyed stare of a man who's either fought in Vietnam or been on tour with Pink Floyd. He's really lost the plot. He's starting to propose things that no one really would have ever expected. And at what point do someone just wheel Tony off, throw a rag over him and just face him out the looking window and say, there, Tony, your time's been and gone.
We got Melanie,
maybe that time is coming.
Melanie saying, who the heck does he think he is? It's just the idea that the British people would be he's sort of going to wants other foreign governments to come over and persuade the British people to stay in the European Union. Sorry, we had the referendum, we had the debate, your side lost. And the more they go on, the likes of Blair and all the rest of a major, with this delusional fantasy that there's some groundswell, or that the German government can convince the British people that staying in the European Union is good for them. These guys seriously need a wake-up call.
Oh yeah,
they lose in touch with reality, aren't they?
I had planned on reading some of the comments that came in about Tony Blair on our stream,
spicy.
And yeah, it's fair to say, I'd say it's definitely spicier than a korma, that's for sure. Oh, here's a nice one. Julie Norman, he's lost the plot. That'll do. Well done, Julie. Thank you.
I think that's a nice summation of the feedback we've had on that particular story.
Definitely, yeah.
But guys, come on. When you've got Tony Blair talking about getting the German government to keep the door open and persuade the UK to stay in the European Union.
Isn't that almost like a complete reversal of history as well, in a way? It's mental. But what I find interesting is with these people that are clearly your uber wealthy, these wholeheartedly, really, really influential people that have had this history. Someone who knows that history books are going to be written about them. they seem to just lose all attachment with reality whatsoever, don't they?
Some of these comments are cracking, but I'm not going to read some of them. But
Gold. I might actually do a montage of these later and just put them out on Twitter. But yeah, no, someone like Tony Blair, where you think you have lost touch, you've completely lost touch. The idea that even as Prime Minister that he would have basically gone, oh, come on, right, basically it's on the Germans to stop Brexit, and expect that not to have gone down like a fart in a lift with the British public is crackers, isn't it? And yet here we are.
bizarre. But look, on our final story, as ever, guys, we like to leave you with a smile on your face if we can. You may have seen the Hungarian election. Viktor Orban, it's a third consecutive term. He's won big. And it's an example, I'm afraid, yet again, well, not afraid, actually, I love it, of a anti-mass migration, Eurosceptic leader winning a European election. And I'm afraid, guys, I mean, when you think about it now, the actual number of European elections that are being won by pro-EU parties is becoming a bit of a collector's item, isn't it? I mean, other than Emmanuel Macron, the people that believe in deeper EU centralisation and give it a big budget and have a military and open the borders, I mean, they're absolutely getting creamed all over the shop, aren't they? They're losing at every single election now. And it's the likes of Viktor Orban. You see it in Italy with Five Star and Liga. You've seen it in Austria with the Freedom Party now in coalition. At every European election, you're seeing Eurosceptics gain, you're seeing Eurosceptics win. And at what point do you actually turn around and say, well, wait a minute. If at every election the European public are voting for Eurosceptic parties, Europe's actually not pro-EU. Europe is Eurosceptic. The leaders, in their ivory towers and Junkers and that, they may be loving it. But increasingly, when you look at Brexit, I'm convinced that when we leave, and as we as a country show that you can trade, you can cooperate, but you can make your own laws and you can control your own borders, that is going to become a very tantalising prospect for a number of other European countries as well.
Richard McDonald, 2 fingers to the EU, happy days, fantastic. Melanie Pozo just saying, yes, well done. Hungary, and yeah, so it's a load of good comments there. It's interesting, isn't it? Because the European Union obviously was founded at a very different time, very different political reality to what we're confronted with today, and a lot of other things were going on at the time, and it was formed in a way that was basically tried to be very directly representational, didn't it, of the people. Well, now it seems to have done what most governments do, which is to basically vehemently disagree with the vast majority of the people that are living under them. And we are entering into a situation now across the EU, as Michael rightly points out, this is by no means a one-off, in fact it's becoming the norm, whereby at every single election it seems like most of the time a Eurosceptic candidate or multiple Eurosceptic candidates are surging to power. They're certainly massively gaining an influence, and they're doing it off the back of undeniable huge volumes of public support. And so where does this line get crossed? We can't be far away from it. This line being crossed where you just have to go, well, actually, the European Union, now, every country is within it is actually a very Eurosceptic place to be, and that obviously presumably questions how long can this Brussels project go on for?
We'll wait and see, guys, but as ever, you have to go to westmonster.com to stay up to date with everything that's going on in terms of Brexit, in terms of law and order, in terms of the Eurosceptic opposition right across the continent. We will be back with Uncensored on Wednesday at 1 o'clock, and if you support what we do, please do go to westmonster.com/support. We will see you on Wednesday. Again, go to westmonster.com for all the latest. We'll see you soon.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.